أهلا بكم في هذا اللقاء الخاص مع السيد فيليب اللازاريني المفوض العام للأونروا وكالة غوث وتشغيل اللاجئين الفلسطينيين. Mr. Lazzarini, it's a pleasure to talk to you. It's nice seeing you again in this interview. Famine, hunger confirmed in Gaza Strip. What happens after that? People still wondering. Still, the Gazan, the children are facing the starvation and dying every day. Any explanation for that?
Well, it's difficult to have an explanation because we had sign of warning for weeks and months that famine was looming, and this has fallen into deaf ears. And now a couple of weeks ago, famine has been declared, which means that famine is a new level for the suffering people in Gaza are going through. Basically, it's hell in all its possible aspects. People are not just dying anymore because of the bombardment, are not dying just because they are desperately trying to find food in this abominable Gaza Humanitarian Forum distribution site. But now people are also dying, the children silently, because of hunger. This is a man-made famine, deliberately fabricated.
Deliberately fabricated by the Israeli government. Do you agree with that?
Yes, it has been deliberately fabricated by the Israeli government since the ceasefire broke down in March. A tight siege has been imposed, and that's when the nutritional situation of the population again started to deteriorate. And we have warned again and again and again that hunger is spreading, is deepening, starvation is here, and soon we will have to declare famine. And that's exactly what the world expert on nutrition have done now a couple of weeks ago.
So we were expecting after declaring the famine, the hunger in Gaza Strip, that there will be steps to stop this situation in Gaza. Why still till now the UN are unable to take steps or other words to stop the famine, stop killing people in Gaza? The whole world are watching this happening, but unable to do anything.
I agree with you, and it's really shocking. Countries have expressed outcry, have expressed condemnation about this situation, but this has not been translated into any meaningful action influencing, for example, the Israeli government, which means that famine continues to spread in the Gaza Strip. Now, what does it mean? There is an extraordinary amount of, I would say, indifference, and I have said it more than once, inaction and indifference in this situation can also amount to complicity, because there is an obligation of the international community to make sure that famine does not occur in a place like Gaza. We are in the 21st century, and we are not talking about any kind of famine. We are not talking about the kind of famine in a war-torn country with a climate change, a complicated situation. No, we are talking about Gaza. We are talking about a population which, under normal circumstances, has never encountered hunger.
If you want to make it short, Mr. Lazzarini, it is a failure of humanity itself?
I think it's a failure of humanity. It's a lack of real compassion and empathy, and this is also due to the total prevailing sense of impunity.
And the lack of political will?
Definitely. I keep saying we can reverse this trend, we can reverse the famine, we can reverse the atrocities only through political will and political decision.
That is not happening right now.
That's the contrary which is happening. Right now we have now a large-scale military operation taking place in Gaza. The entire population has been instructed to move to the south. It's nothing else than forced displacement of an extremely weakened population, a population experiencing famine. And at the same time, we see that Gaza is being completely obliterated. It's becoming a wasteland and basically seems like a large field of rubble and seems to become more and more unfit for human living.
Mr. Lazzarini, now the UNRWA is now in a very challenging situation in terms of the financial issue and challenges. What financial challenges are currently facing the agency, and how you are addressing these issues?
But first of all, I want to stress that despite all the hostile, adverse environment, our colleagues are still courageously operating both in the West Bank, East Jerusalem, but also in Gaza. On a daily basis, we are providing thousands of primary health consultation. We are doing nutrition screening. We are managing a shelter. We are ensuring access to clean water. In this context, it is true that UNRWA is also confronted to deep financial crisis, which has worsened this year. It is also the outcome of, I would say, disinformation campaign against the agency. And today we are in a situation for which we have no visibility about our finance for the next for several months. I was in Cairo on Thursday. I addressed the country of the Arab League. I also told them it is very important to get political support from the region, and solidarity is also strongly being expressed. But it's not necessarily translated into the resource the agency is receiving. Just to give you an example, only from the region, the resource, the contribution between 2024 and 2025 have dropped by 90%. And ultimately, the contribution of the region to the overall resource of the agency amount only 3%. And
Which is not enough.
I'm convinced we can do much better, and I really hope that between now and the end of the year, we will hear contribution coming from the region, but also contribution from additional contribution from our donor.
Ensured contribution coming from the region. Have you got a confirmation that Arab countries are committed to give more to UNRWA?
I have confirmation that the region and Arab country are in full support to the agency, that the region wants to see the renewal of the mandate of UNRWA, which also will be decided this year. And I keep saying that if the mandate is renewed, it should not just be rubber stamped. It should be accompanied by matching resources. We should never forget that the agency provides public-like services. We are like a Ministry of Education, Ministry of Primary Health, for one of the most vulnerable population in the region, being the Palestinian refugees. But we do not have the fiscal tools. I cannot perceive tax, and I cannot borrow money in the bank. So we depend entirely to the voluntary contribution
on generous contribution from the people who are supporting the UNRWA. You've mentioned how you staff, the UNRWA staff, managing in Gaza Strip, in Jerusalem, and also in West Bank. How do they adopt the operation UNRWA? How does the UNRWA adopt its operation during such escalation to ensure the safety of refugees, this is first, and the continued functioning of its facilities?
Well, we are definitely committed, and our staff is committed to ensure the continuation of our services against all odds until the day they are really prevented to provide these services. So it is true, if you look at Gaza, we have paid a high price. About 360 of our colleagues have been killed. 90% of our installation have been damaged or completely destroyed. We are prevented since March to bring in critical goods, life-saving goods or food into the Gaza Strip, despite the fact that we have food and resources in Jordan and in Egypt enough to cover the need of the entire population for the next coming 2 to 3 months. But beside that, we continue on a daily basis, and this is really inspiring what our colleagues are doing. We are still providing services. They still remain committed to meet some of the expectation of the population, despite that they are operating under a very constrained environment.
Mr. Lazzarini, about the deficit that's facing the UNRWA, do you have a certain figure that you need to manage till September? As far as I know, that you barely pay the salaries till September, and after that, maybe no fund, no salaries.
So indeed, we will be able to process the salaries in September. We will have a meeting with the donors, chaired by Jordan and supported by Brazil and Belgium during the high-level week of the UN General Assembly in New York by the end of September. I really hope that at that time there will be announcement on additional contribution to the agency. Otherwise, I will have to continue to implement austerity measure. But each of the austerity measures that we are putting in place...
Redundancy?
No, I'm not talking about redundancy, but I'm
reducing
talking about...
the services?
We do not want to reduce any services. Whatever austerity measure is taken by the agency today, it's taken in the light, how can we best protect the services that we are providing to the people. But you were asking, what is your shortfall for the time being? Our shortfall is more than $200 million. We should not forget that traditionally, at the end of the year or beginning of the year after, we always had the contribution of the United States or donor like Sweden. This year, the United States will not contribute to the agency, and Sweden also stopped its contribution to the agency. So 2 main donors would traditionally provide cash to the agency at the beginning of the year, won't be here. Hence, we are looking in the medium term between now and at least the end of March, and for that, the agency still lack more than $200 million.
And then $200 million needed than this year, as you said, the US and Sweden not funding as been before. It looks like financial prospects remain highly uncertain, and donor pledges have proven insufficient. Isn't that true?
That's true. It's highly uncertain, and the contribution have proven insufficient, and the contribution have decreased this year compared to last year, despite the fact that the needs have continued to increase between 24 and 25. It's a combination of the overall austerity within international cooperation, the humanitarian aid, but it's also an indication that the UNRWA, having been under attack fiercely over the last 2 years, that this also had an negative impact, especially when it comes to contribution from some of our past traditional donors.
Do you think one of the main factors behind that decline in funding, it's about that Israel want to see an end to UNRWA on the Palestinian lands, and you are supporting this?
This is part of the disinformation campaign the agency has been under. It has been a very, very harsh disinformation campaign. Israel has not hidden the fact that they want to see the agency to be dismantled. We also know, we hear similar objective coming from the US administration, and it is true that some donors have been after that hesitant to continue to support the agency. Having said that, we still have a strong donor base, countries supporting Palestinian refugees, supporting an agency like ours. And I want also to flag the fact that we had also an extraordinary, I would say, expression of solidarity, which has been translated into resource by the public opinion, individual giving, for which last year we succeeded to receive more than $100 million, and I hope we will succeed the same this year.
Mr. Lazzarini, now, have the agency managed to countering this information about the job, about any connection with Israel accusing like UNRWA have some connection with Hamas? Now, have you managed to clear the picture and saying to the whole world, this is our job, this is our main duties, and we are doing our job according to rules, and the human rules?
Well, we are a rule-based organization, so for sure we are applying them. We have always taken any allegation of infiltration within the organization very seriously. There have even been investigations last year, but none of the investigation ended up in a conclusive way. And whenever we hear allegation about hundreds of staff or thousands of staff being affiliated with Hamas or the Jihad, we each time ask, can you provide more information? Can you make sure that we have the necessary element to initiate an investigation? Because a claim is not a proof. We cannot just act on exactly. It's not evidence. We never received anything of this nature. Nothing has ever been substantiated. And even when we ask other member states, did you receive information that haven't been shared with us? The answer each time is no. So I would say that's the way we have a counter. The environment regarding this for the agency is less toxic today than it was a year ago. A year ago, you might remember that when we had the serious allegation in January, we had up to 16 countries within 48 hours who have frozen their contribution. But since, because of all the effort of the agency, we have reassured them, and most of them are back in our donor base.
And there are efforts shared with Jordan in many occasions in terms of maintaining the support for the UNRWA and defending the whole situation.
Absolutely. The Kingdom of Jordan has been championing and has been highly supportive to the agency, help us to reach out donor and basically also to tell the donor how important and key the activities of the agencies are for the Palestinian refugees across the region, but also in Jordan. And again, Jordan will be the one convening a number of member states in New York in September in support of the agency.
Yes, and I've met you a couple of times here in Jordan or even in New York, and my question is still how to mobilize sustainable support for UNRWA.
You know, it's a very difficult question because we completely depend on voluntary contribution of member states, and the contribution of the member states also depend on their own domestic consideration. I just give you an example. I always look at with a lot of anxiety election in our donor base, because depending on the conclusion of the election, or depending on the type of government which will be put in place, it will tell us if they will continue to support the agency or end the support to the agency. So in this context, it is very difficult to ensure sustainability, even more when the same countries, for domestic reasons, have to take austerity budgetary decision, which most of the time will then impact the budget of international cooperation.
In your review, is there any potential for a lasting peace in Gaza or political resolution to end the tragedy that we're witnessing every day and the whole world is watching it but doing nothing to stop it?
Well, it's shocking. You know, the member states usually have a toolkit. They know how to influence countries or influence those who would be responsible of committing a war crime. Unfortunately, nothing has been used so far, and as I mentioned before, there is this impunity prevailing, which is basically not stopping these atrocities being committed. But what we need, you're right, we need a ceasefire, not tomorrow. We needed a ceasefire yesterday. The soonest the best. This is what is needed. Once we have a ceasefire, hostages will be released, humanitarian assistance will be poured, but it will provide a respite to the population. And then I really hope that member states and the international community be genuinely committed to promote a lasting political solution.
Living in Gaza, as you know, Mr. Lazzarini, under constant threat of violence, many refugees are experiencing severe psychological trauma. How is UNRWA addressing the growing mental health needs of refugees?
I mean, the needs are absolutely huge, but under these circumstances, it's almost impossible. I always give the example of the children. We have more than 600,000 girls and boys of the age of primary school, secondary school, deeply traumatized, living in the rubble, and they have been out of school now for more than 2-3 years. We are at the risk of totally losing a generation, and this can only sow the seeds of more bitterness and extremism in the future. It should be in the interest of no one if you want to promote longer-term peace and security in the region. So I believe that if we have a ceasefire tomorrow, one of the top priority is to bring them back into an education environment and to show that a future or better future is still possible. But as you said, the trauma is very, very deep, and it's not just the children, but also the teacher and the entire population. So that's also something we will have to deal with the population.
No, but it's very obvious, Mr. Lazzarini, challenges and obstacles are a huge. Healthcare in Gaza is severely overwhelmed, and UNRWA plays a critical role in providing essential medical service to refugees. Now, do you think the whole healthcare is under a huge stress if this war and the blockade is still going by Israeli and preventing assistance to enter by the UN and other countries?
Yeah, I mean, the whole health system has been under assault, like the education system has been under assault. Hospital has been targeted, and we have a long list of people having life-threatening injuries who need to be evacuated. There is no doubt that the health system will also be one of the areas to be prioritized in the future. Meanwhile, and this is also an area where UNRWA provides basic services to the population, we continue to have thousands of people on a daily basis to whom we are providing primary health consultation.
I'm going to ask you one question, Mr. Lazzarini. How you can convince people to keep trusting the UN while they see the UN and other agencies are unable to give help to the refugees in Gaza or the Palestinian West Bank or in Jerusalem, while they can do that in other places like Ukraine?
You know, it's not a trust in the United Nations. It's and people in Gaza do the distinction. They do not trust the international community. They do not trust the member state.
They lost
and you
hope.
are right.
They lost hope.
They are afraid that the international community has turned its back on the Palestinian and on the Palestinian refugees. And you are right to say that, you know, elsewhere we might have access, elsewhere we might take measure.
The double standard, Mr. Lazzarini?
And this is what I have said many times when we talk about the Geneva Convention, international humanitarian law. When it comes to Gaza, the feeling is that it has lost its universality. Here, there is a feeling of a double standard, and for the time being, rightly so. And I have said many times, Gaza might become the graveyard of the Geneva Convention and the international humanitarian law. Hence the importance to make sure that Gaza is not becoming the new norm. And what does it mean? That means we have to act. And it's absolutely unbearable to see the lack of action of the member states.
I would like to thank you very much, Mr. Philippe Lazzarini, for this interview and for being honest to tell the situation of UNRWA and the situation in Gaza Strip. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you.